Welcome to another episode of the Chris Rod Max Show, where every week we discuss the latest developments in AI, what's happening on the enterprise front, on the consumer side, how are we adopting AI, and what's going on with this new technology. Every week I'm joined by my co-hosts, but this is a special episode where this time it's only Rod. It's me, no one else. Chris and Max were not able to join the show. However, that does not mean that there will not be an episode of the Chris Rod Max Show. We're approaching the end of the year, and as parties start happening, as people start gathering, for sure there are many discussions about generative AI, about what's going on with everyone starting to adopt AI technologies. So, such that you're not in a situation where you don't have a discussion topic, where you do not know what's going on in the space, well, we have collected the top 10 most relevant developments in the Gen AI space. So let's get started. What's the first development or the most important one in all of 2024? Well, this one is quite easy. The Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded to Geoffrey Hinton together with John Hopfield for developments related to the development of neural networks. This is the underpinning technology for generative AI. And what's amazing is that Hinton had already won back in 2018 the Alan Turing Award, which is a Nobel Prize for Computing. And now he was awarded another one, this time the actual Nobel Prize. So there you go. It is something that for someone who is not in the space, it will not be straightforward. Nevertheless, if we look at here our screen, just the basic idea is how we can see neural networks as brain neurons, how they work and so on, like a computational implementation or an inspiration taken from actual. And for anyone who is in space, well, these architectures, we study them in books, they're like very established and so on. But it's fascinating how, for anyone who is not in space, it is hard to grasp that this type of knowledge, this type of technology, for a very long time, was almost considered in the community as forbidden knowledge, as something that was not worth pursuing, as something that was seen as lesser, as less interesting, and so on. And now finally, or maybe not now, but already now for about 6-8 years, the relevance and the impact that neural networks have had in our society has been acknowledged. And as a result, now we're seeing how things such as the Nobel Prize in physics is taking place. So, what will be the second most important development in Gen AI? Well, this one is also easy because not only we had a Nobel Prize in physics, but also we had one for chemistry, also awarded for a technology in the not generative space, but neural networks. This one was for trying to understand protein sequences, trying to come up with sequences that can be generated much more faster without requiring complex experiments and so on. So the award was awarded the large team in DeepMind. DeepMind, for those who don't know, it is a department. It used to be a startup that was acquired by Google back in 2014. And they've been pursuing general artificial intelligence, primarily with a focus on life sciences, biology, and so on. And they came up with this idea that in the end, just like we can predict the next word in a sentence, and that's pretty much what ChatGPT is doing, is trying to come up with the next word in a given sentence, we can do something like that with other structures. For example, protein chains. And this way, we can, for example, develop new medicines, new treatments, new therapies in a much more faster and less costly manner. This one is very impactful. In fact, part of the team behind went to the company about that. They have already done massive deals with large pharma, such as Lilly Ledy and so on. So it has been something where we see here is not only the impact from a academic, as an academic curiosity, as an academic development, but also it is the commercial side and how can it benefit humanity. So, with that said, now that we have achieved the two largest developments of the year, are the others as significant? Did anything else happen? Well, what else is in our agenda? A common theme on our show has been the rise of AI agents, right? So pretty much it is almost like a cliche that we have a show and somehow there is always something related the AI agents. And of course, in the year 2024, one of the most notable developments has been the rise of AI agents. Not only from a perspective of adoption, but it seems pretty much that the SaaS industry, software as a service that everyone uses, whether it is a Google Drive or a Microsoft, or doesn't matter what you use, in any case, everything these days is being labeled as an AI agent. The idea behind, of course, it is that at some point we might have the equivalent of AI employees that can take complete projects and develop them end to end. And as a result, we might become faster. Organizations might even be able to get nimbler by requiring less employees. And well, with all that means for society, for compensation, and so on and so forth. But in the meantime, right here and now, the rise of AI agents has resulted in higher productivity in many cases, where no longer you need to do copy paste, no longer you need to spend time doing manual tasks, but also has made AI much more approachable because now we see that pretty much any web application, doesn't matter if it's Salesforce or Word and so on, is starting to have some sort of AI agent capability. That will be our third most important development of the year. And connected to that, it is how we moved away from just pure chatbots, a chat experience, text, the multimodality. We saw this year really the explosion of possibilities on how we can generate other formats that is not just text. So sure, you might say already back in 2022 and even earlier, we have image generation, DALI and so on, Midjourney, etc. But this year was really the first year where we had the possibility, the use technologies, applications, platforms that generate video, sound, just using prompts, just through text and descriptions. And this has unlocked so many new things, from the ability to create complete YouTube videos just through text, the ability to have, for example, as we see here from Sora, from OpenAI in our screen, how all this is being generated just from a text prompt. And we can control if it should be 3D, realistic, maybe cartoonish, and so on. All that just through a simple prompt. Whereas before, you have represented, for example, hiring a full production crew, being an expert in filming, editing, post production, and so on. So, definitely, the rise of multimodality has been a major development this year. And this is just getting started because for anyone who has been following Sora and similar models, they're still in their early days. There are so many issues with them. They're not, of course, perfect. But it's amazing how just 1 year ago, something like this felt almost outlandish, a dream. And now it's accessible to pretty much everyone. And What's our next development? Well, the next one has been how we have moved very fast towards regulatory frameworks. Also, a very common thread in every episode here in our show. For previous technologies, it has always been freewheeling, laissez faire. Let's think how long it has taken just to regulate the internet. If something is illegal content or not, if, for example, in the crypto space for cryptocurrencies, how long has it been taken just to define if something is actually a currency or is more like an asset or is more just speculation, whatever it is. Whereas with AI, there has been a demand both from businesses, government, society that have clarity. And we've seen the establishment, the creation of committees across geographies and internationally trying to set a regulatory framework for AI technologies. Something that has been happening very fast and definitely that will continue happening in 2025. As our next major development this year is open source models. And let's think how it was just last year. Just last year, it felt like the only way how we can use AI was by paying OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, third-party provider that get access to this technology. And it felt like it might be even a monopoly or an oligopoly where a few will control the market. Maybe they will jack up the prices, it'll get more and more expensive and so on. The opposite has happened. Prices have gone down, but also the models that were available in the market have gotten so much better that for many cases they are close to or basically on par the other counterparts in the closed source space. So open weight models such as the Mistrals, the Llamas, Qwens, and many others, they have had their year this year. They become extremely performant, extremely reliable, and also companies have started to adopt them. And the question, why are we paying the OpenAI? Do we even need it if we can just start using Llama and so on? So for sure, next year we'll see much more in the open source space, in the open weight space. And I can well see a situation where OpenAI is perhaps still the largest player, but maybe it's not controlling more than 10, 15, 20% of the market because of all the other alternatives available. What's the next development in 2024 in the AI space? Well, another thing also in our show has been the adoption of generative AI technologies in the industry. If we think about previous waves and also last year, it was always everything of maybe proof of concepts, maybe some MVPs, maybe some demos, some pilot phases, and so on. But now, basically, all companies have some sort of AI initiative, AI teams. Their employees get access to these technologies at a pace that we hadn't seen before. We can even see this report from McKinsey back from April of this year, how it shows that between 2023 and 2024, adoption of AI in the enterprise went from 56% to 72%. And we can see also in the chart that in previous years, it was more or less stable. It was almost a flat, basically since 2019. But with the rise of generative AI, it really exploded. And as a result, it has trickled down from the enterprise to the consumer. Our next major development this year has been how consumers got access to these technologies. For example, Apple Intelligence recently became public, people started using it, and it has started to become something where the technology is seamless. For anyone who uses Apple Intelligence, it is not like a separate app. It doesn't really say here is AI and so on. It's just making common tasks, common workflows, just smoother, just faster, more convenient. And this is really like the trend that we've been seeing in AI augmented apps, where it's no longer screaming, hey, this is AI, hey, here's the functionality, but rather is just integrated very discreetly in the things that we already have. Copy paste, remove backgrounds, push notifications that are smarter and more relevant, and so on. So this is just one example, but there are many others in code generation, right, assistance, and so on and so forth. What else has happened in the generative AI space? Are there other things that are also relevant or worth commenting? Well, the next one will be how we have AI across creative industries. And this also harkens back to what we're saying about enterprise adoption and also multimodality, where there was this ad from Coca-Cola. So this ad from Coca-Cola was entirely generated with generative AI. And it has such a good quality that the company decided to make it public. Example like this, we're seeing all across YouTube, where we're bombed with trailers from movies that that they never existed. They're also showing us how B-roll, how alternative sequences of video can be used, can be implemented, can be replaced with generative AI technologies. So there is all this wave of integrating generative AI in creative industries. And here now we just discussed YouTube videos and commercials and so on, but we're forgetting everything that has happened in the music space, in arts, and how generative AI is permeating pretty much all creative industries. Let's think now what can be like the next and the last trend that we had this year in the generative AI space. It is connected to adoption in the enterprise, a very fast iteration, moving away from prototypes, and how we start seeing a wave of really impactful results through AI adoption across industries. An initial suspect in our podcast is Klarna. We discussed how Klarna has replaced departments responsible for creating marketing campaigns, how Klarna has largely automated their customer support with generative AI, how Klarna is now using generative AI that create the same workload equivalent to a team of 700 support agents, and so much more. The latest stunt pulled out by Klarna was that their CEO reporting their latest financials was not actually their CEO. They used a generative AI and they replaced their voice was extended, and they were just pretty much playing an artificial reproduction of their voice. And talking more broader about this, we've also seen the other side. We've seen, and we have discussed this extensively in our show, how there are more and more reports coming that in creative industries, not everything is rosy and not everything is like fantastic. We're just using here generative AI and getting cool results. But also, there has been a lot of pressure in salaries, in opportunities, for example, for creatives, for copywriting, for marketing, and so on. Translation, tasks that were pretty much standard previously, now having largely automated, and as a result, the value for these projects in the freelancing market has completely plummeted. So we see here the two sides of the coin. On one side, these very impactful cases that are discussed openly in the press, how we've seen this super hyper personalization of the AI applications, but also how this is also starting to impact the job market in positive and less positive manners. So let us think and recap what are like the 10 major trends, such that when you go to your Christmas party, you can show an excessive knowledge in the space and impress everyone. The first two, the Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry, both awarded the basics, the foundations of artificial intelligence, neural networks. We also discuss how this year was the year of the rise of the AI agents and how we moved from multimodal AI, how we moved from text AI, just pure text to text, to text, the other formats, audio, video, and with such a quality that is extremely impressive, that is competitive with what we had before with production crews, with studios, and so on. We also saw how we had now AI frameworks, how societies, governments, and the market are demanding, are open to establish ways to set boundaries, but also to define how should we interact with these technologies. We discussed how this year was the year of the open source, open weights. Not anymore just this monopoly, oligopoly, but now we have access to multiple open source, open weights models such as OpenAI, well, not OpenAI because they're all closed source, but rather Meta Llama, Mistral, and so many others. And not only we have an explosion of models, but also their quality. It has gotten so good that in many cases, we might not need the use closed source models at all. We then went and saw how the enterprise has strongly embraced AI technologies. This is speeding up and this is trickling down the consumer market. And how for consumer applications, these AI augmented apps are rather replacing standard functionality, enhancing it, and thus making it more useful, more relevant, more powerful. We saw how, for example, even large companies such as Coca-Cola, they are using generative AI to create professional ads, and not only them, but also in arts, music, film industry. And finally, we saw how companies are using generative AI that hyper-personalize and accelerate their whole processes. Klarna as the classic example. Do you agree with this list? Are we missing any important event that we should be mentioning it? Well, tell us in the comments. Share what was your top 10 list of developments this year. And, well, before the year ends, remember, we have our newsletter on chrisrodmax.com. Go and sign up for our newsletter. We're always collecting and discussing so many news between Chris, Max, and I, Rod. Not always we get to discuss them here in our program, in our show. However, we're sharing them on our newsletter. So join it, sign up. This way, you can not only get access to our episodes, the transcripts, the highlights, and everything, but also you get the most relevant news that we consider in the AI space. And remember, like, subscribe, share everything, the positives, the negatives, and tune in every Monday for another episode of the Chris Rod Max Show. Next week, we'll have again our regular crew discussing what's going on in these last weeks of the AI space. Until next time,